All right, welcome everyone. We're so glad to have you with us. Those of you that are Briscoe fans, members that have been following some of our digital programming over the last several months during this very unusual time during COVID-19, know that we've had the opportunity to visit with some spectacular artists, and now we're very excited to be able to speak with some of the curators, the two curators for our latest show, Visual Voices. And very happy to have with us Manuela and Karen Whitecotton. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for coming here. It's a pleasure to speak with you both today.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you
very much.
So where are you speaking to us from, first of all?
Well, I'm here in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And I'm in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, hopefully all are safe and doing well there right now. We just recently opened up Visual Voices, and I have to say, just a spectacular show. Such a beautiful representation of Chickasaw beliefs and culture and artistic talent. And it's astounding. It really is. It's been so much fun to watch that exhibition come together in our venue. But today, hopefully, we get to understand a little bit more about what goes into the exhibition, what goes into the planning and the thought and all the work to get an exhibition like this off the ground. And so to our first question, what was it initially that brought you two together to develop this show?
Yeah, I can start, and Karen, feel free to add if I forget anything. So we were both invited by the Chickasaw Artist Board to co-curate a contemporary Chickasaw art exhibition, and the idea was actually born out of a conversation between Chickasaw Nation Governor Bill Anatabi and artists during the 2013 Southeastern Art Show and Market in Oklahoma. So the governor and artists discussed how one could increase the awareness of Southeastern art, and particularly Chickasaw art, in native and native and mainstream art world. So these artists then formed an artist board, and they developed the idea of a major traveling exhibition. So it was really not your typical model where the curator or curators sit together and they have a great idea and then they start the planning. Now in the museum world, we often talk about giving artists a voice or have artist-led initiatives. So Visual Voices was actually an example of a successful artist-led project. So very unusual, but it worked out.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I would just add, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would just add that, so I was approached by Laura Clark, the project manager, to work on the exhibition. I'm a registrar by trade, and so, and I have my own museum consulting business. So I was really brought on to help with organizing the logistical side and helping Laura kind of understand how museum and the artist board understand how museums operate and the things to look for when we're traveling a show like this. And so it was a really interesting perspective from my part, working with artists in this fashion, and it was a wonderful experience though.
That's wonderful. You gotta have the logistics in there too. Someone that's got that museum experience. Well, it sounds like the Chickasaw Art Board was really instrumental in this. And with that, as you were working on this original concept, I'm assuming with the Chickasaw Art Board, how did that start, and where did particularly something that jumps out in the exhibition is that idea of seasonality? How did that evolve in this show?
Yeah, the 4 seasons have always played an important role in Chickasaw culture. And one of the goals for this exhibition was to introduce the general public to an important aspect of Chickasaw worldview and Chickasaw culture. So Chickasaw culture, for example, doesn't see the passage of time or the seasons as linear, instead as cyclical. And the seasonal element was very important to the artist board. So again, we have a model where we have artists, an artist board, and the curators work closely with them and together develop ideas for the content of this exhibition. The exhibition also uses seasons as metaphor for for periods of change throughout Chickasaw history. So it's not literally the 4 seasons, but it's also kind of a symbol for the many changes that occurred in Chickasaw history. Since these artworks address a wide variety of different themes, we also allowed other venues to really look at the artworks as an entire, the entire checklist of artworks, and really also organize works by different themes. For example, at the Mississippi Museum of Art, and here in Santa Fe at the IARA Museum of Contemporary Native Art, we organized the artworks also by other groups. For example, what stood out were themes like homelands and belonging, or women and cultural empowerment, oral histories and modern narratives, and also abstraction and new approaches to tradition. So we have the seasons as theme that ties everything together, but there are certainly also other important themes in this show.
I'll just follow up with saying that I know early on we talked about like the theme of like identity was really important to the group, and really as the artist committee or the artist board, I want to say they are really kind of more as curators for the show in a way, because it was really their vision that Manuela and I and Laura tried to facilitate and bring to life, and the seasonal theme was something as Chickasaw people that they felt very, very strongly about. And so that, you know, that as a prominent theme was we made sure to weave that into the exhibition.
That's fantastic. And what a great way too to be able to not only incorporate those core beliefs, but then have the flexibility to expand on some of those themes too. That's really impressive. Now, with the finding of these artists, I mean, again, working with the Chickasaw Art Board, did they select those? Were you part of that process of selecting the artist? How did that go? And did you find any surprises along the way as you were exploring the different artists that you would include in the show?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we were actively involved in selecting the artists. We published a call for art in regional and tribal art publications, but Karen and I, we also visited artists in their studios in Oklahoma, and we also visited art markets, for example, the Artesian Market in Sulphur, Oklahoma. And to select artists, we had several meetings in Oklahoma, and so several meetings with the artist boards. And we also developed criteria. You know, you have to discuss artworks and select artists. You need to have certain criteria. But for me as a curator at IAA Mokna, it was also important to have a good number of really contemporary and experimental artworks in the mix. So that was very important for us, since we wanted to host this exhibition at Mokna. But also we looked at a balance between 2D and 3D art. So really a lot of different criteria came together, but we selected the artists and artworks really as a group.
And we did expand the number of artists that we included in the show, because there ended up being so many really talented and really important artists to leave anybody out of this, I think. So we ended up, I can't remember the numbers now because this has been too many years, but I'm wanting to say maybe 5 additional. Wow. Does that sound right? Yeah. About 5 additional artists, I think.
And going back to your question about surprises, So I was not familiar with many of the artists. So the biggest surprise was really finding this great talent in rural Oklahoma. And I can really recommend to every curator to go out there and have a look, and don't underestimate artists in rural areas in the United States. Really, many of these artists, the quality of their work, you would think they live in larger cities, but now in southwestern Oklahoma. And another surprise was really the strong interest also in promoting and preserving the legacy of female tribal leaders. I really enjoyed learning more about these female tribal leaders, like the Panther woman and Tyra Shackelford. Her piece talks about the Lady of Coffee-Tacheki, and just to learn about these really strong women in the Chickasaw Nation, that was, you know, one of the pleasant surprises. But I also enjoyed working directly with the artists. As I mentioned, I'm working at a contemporary Native Art Museum, and I encouraged everybody to push the boundaries and experiment, and many of them did. So, and I was really impressed by the results. So those were some of those pleasant surprises.
That's excellent. Karen, how about you? Did you find any surprises? I mean, especially as a registrar, did you find any surprises as you're going through the exhibition and visiting with these artists?
I think what inspired me a lot was, so I'm also Native American, I'm Citizen Potawatomi. And I felt like just being a part of this as a Chickasaw Nation project was really inspiring, because it's not something that has been undertaken by my own tribe. And so I felt I really identify a lot with the support that the Chickasaw Nation has given this. And so that was really nice to be a part of something with that much tribal support, I think, of the arts especially. But I really also loved how tight-knit this group of artists is. They're super supportive of each other. And it was just really nice to kind of become a part of this little community of artists.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And it's really amazing to see the great response that we felt from the artists in the mounting of this show. And also to see it really does show through this idea, this concept of the matrilineal, the strong women leaders within the show. And we were talking with Laura a little bit yesterday, and about some of the symbolism that's depicted in many of the pieces. And some of them, like you said, Manuela, some of them are very contemporary, and some of them are very representational of traditional beliefs. In what way do you feel like this show works to blend both the contemporary and the traditional Chickasaw beliefs?
Yeah, I think this exhibition is really a good representation of the Chickasaw art scene, which consists of more customary or traditional and contemporary artists. One of the exhibition's goals was actually to show the diversity of Chickasaw art today. But really what connects all of these artists is their strong sense of Chickasaw identity that really stood out to me, and their lively interest in preserving, but also further developing Chickasaw and Southeastern Native art traditions. Several artists revived traditional or customary art techniques. For example, Joanne Underwood is really known for reviving ceramic art in the Chickasaw Nation. And they revived traditional techniques or materials, but also experimented with contemporary styles. So it's a good mix you always see. And other artists then explored traditional designs, but then worked with contemporary materials or techniques. That's really fascinating. There is no one way or the other. It's always blending in some of the historic designs or working very contemporary, but making sure the content or the message ties back to Chickasaw culture and history. That was my dog.
I would just add to that. I mean, Manuela said that very well. I would just add, like, you have artists like Maya Stewart, who incorporates traditional patchwork into sleek, modern, utilitarian, but art. I mean, these handbags are art as well.
Absolutely.
And then you have Tyra Shackelford, who makes wearable art with traditional methods such as a spraying technique, and then people like Billy Hensley, who use traditional subjects as paintings but uses contemporary materials. Like, he uses bubble wrap in layering some of his paints, and so I think it's just such a mix of styles and methods and subject matter that really, I think, melds so well in this exhibition to tell these stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really is just a fascinating blend of the ways that culture endures throughout time. I think that's one of the most exciting things about this show is you see pieces that you can recognize from contemporary day-to-day life, like the bubble wrap, like seat covers, like a stormtrooper helmet, and you see that combined with the Chickasaw element, the cultural element, and how that's infused in there really just makes it, I don't know, such an accessible and exciting show. How do you feel like this show was received specifically by the Chickasaw Nation when the show came together? Sounds like back in 2013. What was the response?
The Chickasaw Nation fully supported the exhibition and serves as grantor for all aspects of the show. When the show opened in 2018 in Norman at the Fred Jones Museum, Governor Bill Anatabi spoke to a large crowd, and he was very pleased with the exhibition and thanked all who helped with the development of the show, and also all who promoted Chickasaw art. That's something I really lively remember. Many Chickasaw citizens who came to these openings, they told us they were really amazed at the size of this exhibition and the diversity of art, but they really were very thankful and appreciated that we represented Chickasaw art and culture in a major national traveling exhibition.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the Chickasaw Nation has been incredibly supportive, from the get-go, and this project just would not have been possible without them. So I think, yes, absolutely, they were vital in this becoming a reality.
That's excellent. So refreshing to have a group of people, even down to the leaders, supportive of the arts and supportive of their artists, to really encourage them to express themselves. And in that expression, I mean, we see such a range of it throughout the exhibition. What do you all hope as you finish? It sounds like the show originally opened in 2018 and has toured for the last couple of years. What do you hope as visitors go through and see the various pieces? What do you hope they come away with?
One of our main goals was really to introduce contemporary Chickasaw art to a wide national audience, and also to talk about some of the themes artists were interested in. That was very important to me. So one of the goals was really introducing contents and themes what contemporary Chickasaw artists are interested in today. For example, artists' relationship to current and historic homelands, or also the preservation and continuation of Chickasaw art traditions and personal and collective identities, and also the important role Chickasaw women play in Chickasaw culture and society. So those were some of the themes we were hoping our audiences would learn about. Other important goals were really to show the individuality, but also the diversity of Chickasaw art. And Paul Moore, one of our artists, really said it best. So he said that he hopes that visitors understand there is an inherent complexity woven into Chickasaw art and culture. And Chickasaw art is not a singular style, just as we as humans are not monochrome.
That's beautiful.
And that's interesting that you say that last part, Manuela, because I remember when we were working on the themes for the show, it was important for the artists committee to differentiate Chickasaw art from woodland art, because a lot of times it's grouped together and it's very different. And so that was really important. But I think for me, main takeaways, I think for visitors, I really hope that people, especially non-Native American visitors, will see this show and get a greater understanding of modern Indigenous people, especially Chickasaw people. And I think, the artists and the artist committee worked so hard on the show and, poured their hearts and souls into this project. And I think that it should give visitors a sense of modern tribal identity, I think, from these artworks, and that they will see that Native Americans are in fact still here, still creating art, are still relevant. And, as the Chickasaw Nation likes to say, they are unconquered.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, that's really interesting too, because it's so important to ensure that people today realize that Native culture is not past, it's vibrant and present and contemporary. And I mean, just working in the museum field and having worked in various Western museums, it seems often that people kind of tend to group Native people and generalize about the cultures. Do you feel as though this show has really helped to distinguish the Chickasaw and distinguish their unique culture throughout the areas where it's toured and where it's received some more national attention?
Yeah, so Visual Voices has been hosted by 5 venues across the nation, and really each venue contributed to the great exposure these artists received through public programs and also marketing efforts. And I know at each venue, artists were invited, and they gave either presentation or workshops, and they really helped educate the public about Chickasaw culture and how Chickasaw culture, history, art is different from other tribal cultures throughout the United States. So that really helped in the interaction with the artists directly. And we really received great media coverage, I must say, thanks to the efforts of the Chickasaw Nation media team, but also each venue contributed. And for example, there were feature articles in Native Art magazine, the Santa Fe New Mexicans, Cowboys and Indians magazine. So these are major publications.
National publications, yeah.
So really it helped teaching or educating the general public about Chickasaw, contemporary Chickasaw art. But also the catalog, I must say, we have a wonderful publication accompanying this National Traveling Exhibition. Mm-hmm. And you will see scholarly essays by different Native art historians, Native curators. So that all helped, I would say, to really educate the general public about contemporary Chickasaw art.
Excellent, excellent. Karen, do you have anything to add?
I think the only thing, oh yeah, sorry. I think as a museum person, I would be interested in knowing what the different venues used as metrics, or if they did to measure impact for visitor experience for the show, what were takeaways and that kind of thing. That's just the museum side of me that wonders that. But I definitely think that there's no way that people saw the show and didn't take something away about what it means to be Chickasaw, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And it's a powerful show. It really is. Just the collection of artists and talents and the work that went into it and the symbolism that goes into it is just, it's so striking throughout the show. And so I think it really is a wonderful show. And I think you're right. I think that you can't go through there without gaining some sense of that, what it means to be Chickasaw today. Well, I have to ask then, do you all have, I'll say, a piece that stands out to you? I won't say a favorite piece because they're fantastic. Is there a piece that really stands out to you when you think about visual voices?
Oh, you put us on the spot.
Well, there are several pieces, and as curators, we are trained to be neutral, to be objective. And the more I learn about an artist and his or her work, the more I appreciate that work. But as I mentioned, as a curator at a contemporary Native Art Museum, I really appreciate the works that really show the artist took a risk. For example, Tara Shackelford's larger than life shawl. That is something I know she worked on it for a long time and thought about it for a long time. And it's not like any of the other pieces she did. And to take this risk and really create this meaningful work that not only talks about this lady of Kofita Chiki, but also, when you look at the piece, the unraveling at the bottom, that talks about the changes in Chickasaw history and how you also have loose ends, it's not all tied together anymore. It's highly symbolical, this piece. And her efforts were rewarded. So this piece was actually acquired by the Heidelberg Museum, a major museum in Indianapolis. So that was really something I am very proud of her that she did that. And there's always Dustin Major with his combining of contemporary materials and styles, but including Chickasaw language. So often you see texts in his work and images from popular culture. So when I visited him at the Artesian Art Fair, he explained he likes to include text because he wants to get the young generation interested in learning the Chickasaw language. So to see those experimental works and the meaningfulness and thoughtfulness, that's really, that excites me.
I would say it's hard to pick one favorite. I really love textile exhibitions, so I'm really drawn to working with textiles. So of course, I mentioned Maya Stewart. I love her. I'm obsessed with her pieces. But working with Margaret and her pieces, there's just so much depth, and you really need to see those up close to see how intricate those pieces are. So I think those are worth just spending some time and really studying them. And then of course, as Manuela mentioned, Dustin, I'm a big pop culture fan, and so I really appreciated his pieces incorporating Star Wars and like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those spoke to me personally. So I think that there are several that I really are really connected with. But overall, I mean, the show is there's every piece deserves to be there, and all the artists are so talented, and I think people will appreciate every single piece in the show.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And with that, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I always have to find out. And again, not a favorite, just a standout piece. Ideally, we hope that everyone, not only the people watching, but the people that hear about the show, the coverage we're getting, that they come to see Visual Voices. It really is a marvelous show. It speaks on a different level to art and culture from people who live in the West, who've lived here for thousands of years, who've lived on this continent for thousands of years, and continue and perpetuate that culture this day. It's really wonderful. And while we have you all here and also our guests, our attendees, I will encourage you, we have, oh man, that didn't work out well. It's a blue book. No. So it's a book. It's actually a Chickasaw book. It's called a Nampolici. We're going to be using that book, reading that for our next Briscoe book club. And that will take place November 10th at 6:30 p.m. We'll be using the same Zoom format. Seems to work well for us. Please come and see the show. Visual Voices is up through January. It really is fantastic. And Manuela, Karen, thank you both so much for sharing your insights into the show, the work you did. Your efforts truly have paid off, yours and the Chickasaw Art Board, because it's already, I mean, even just yesterday, our first day opening to the public, I couldn't tell you just how many people were walking in there, exploring that exhibition, and coming away looking so satisfied. It just is, it really is wonderful. And we thank you and all the artists for sharing with us.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for inviting us. It was a pleasure.
Yes, Ryan, thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And everyone, to all our attendees, thank you for watching today. Again, our curators for Visual Voices, Manuela Welloff-Mann, Karen Whitecotton, so glad to have you all here today. And we encourage you to please attend our programs at the Briscoe Western Art Museum and come and see the show. We are open, and we encourage you to come take a look. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful Saturday, and everyone stay safe.